Hi, I'm here.
I'm here too.
Johnny's here as well. He's behind the curtain.
I'm hidden.
He's hidden away from you all, or more importantly, from me.
Yeah, nice.
Oh dear, I'm just going to prop my phone up on a different stand so I can see comments more easily, at least on Facebook. I'm sorry to hear you're feeling a bit rubbish, Carol. That's no good, is it? But you're right, maybe some crystal work will help. We can only hope. Yes, happy new haircut for me. Ta-da! I've had my shave. I don't I don't know why, but every time I go in, right, what can we do for you? Same as usual. Number 2, please. So welcome, welcome. We've got a good number of people here already. Lovely to have some of you from the membership and others not as well. So welcome. Okay, so this evening we're going to be looking at a few of my go-to crystals for empaths. Or indeed, if you don't label yourself as an empath, but you do experience heightened sensitivity to others' energies. Same thing. Okay, good evening, Sharon. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say so. It's always nice to get compliments, isn't it? Very nice. So I'm just going to give it a minute. I'm just to allow people to join and say hello. Gosh, so many lovely people, so many lovely names. So, tell me, you're here because you're interested in crystals, but is it specifically because you have a heightened sensitivity to energy, or you work sort of empathically or empathetically? What's the right word, Johnny? He's more literate than I am. Is it
empathically?
Empathically, yeah, I like that word better. So, is that something that you're dealing with on a regular basis? To what degree do you deal with it, or do you not? Can you not deal with it? Are you struggling with it? Let me know, because as we go through this evening's content, I'm going to be going through a little bit about what being an empath is if you're sort of all new to this. But if you're not, and you're sort of just keen to know which crystals I would certainly recommend, we'll come to that as well. We're going to go through my top 5. Hello, Caroline. Yeah, I think we're both well. I think so.
Yeah.
What I will say is, obviously, Storm Eunice is battering parts of the UK. So fingers crossed we don't have any internet issues. But if we do, try refresh. Refreshing your whole browser, closing the browser, reopening. And if it still doesn't work and I'm still stopping and freezing, there's always going to be a replay. Okay. And that replay will be available on Facebook for 30 days and on YouTube for longer. And if you're signed up to our free woo in the Woo Guru portal, the free woo for you section, it will also be there for a lot longer. Okay. Right, so let's begin, shall we? What is an empath? Because the term empath does get bandied around an awful lot over recent years. Some people wearing it almost like a badge of honor in many ways. But the truth about being an empath is that it can be both a blessing and a curse. Everyone can feel energy. Everyone. I even had a discussion with it with my daughter this afternoon about it, just asking her what she thought about it and if she'd sort of come across situations where she was able to sense the energy of a room or the energy of another person and how she would respond to that. Literally everybody will have had that experience of just knowing when someone was behind them, or walking into a room where the atmosphere is almost so tangible that you can cut it with a knife. Being able to sense this energy is part of being an energetic being in our conscious embodiment. And because we're very in our conscious awareness, we don't always know why we feel something. We just do. But there are some people who spend so much time purposefully and intentionally connecting with the energy of others that we can become very heightened to it, very sensitive to it. This is great if you're an energy worker, sharing Reiki or crystal therapy or other sort of energy mediums, or even becoming a mediumship, because it gives you becoming a medium rather, because it gives you a much deeper, richer sense of what's going on for a person below the surface of the consciousness. And those people are there for you to do just that. That's the whole point. So it's a skill and a gift that is worth nurturing. But this heightened energy doesn't just switch off as soon as the client leaves necessarily. Sometimes we can remain open to the awareness of the energy of others when we head out into the real world away from the therapy room. And even if you're not offering healing therapies, because I don't want you to think that this is just exclusive to therapists, because it isn't. Even if you're not an energy worker as such, you may be deepening your own spiritual connection, where meditating more, connecting with spirit through mediumship or for other purposes, magical practices, all of these sorts of things. These all raise your vibration and nurture that awareness of energy. And then when we head out into our regular lives, we can more easily sense energies around us that we're not consciously tapping into, feeling the emotions of individuals around us, but also the collective energies as well. And that's really not always great. Personally, I'm not a supermarket goer or a party goer because of the sheer mix of energies in a confined space that I'm there to engage with. And it can become overwhelming. It's why I tend to leave parties early, if I go at all, or why I send Johnny to the supermarket at every possible opportunity, avoiding it myself wherever possible. And it can come across at times as a dislike of people and builds into a kind of social anxiety. And then you start to put labels on these feelings that begin to trigger issues that lay deeper within our psyche, like self-worth issues and self-doubt and challenges of confidence. It's a bit of a slippery slope, really. And that's not to say, again, that all anxiety, social or otherwise, or triggers of lack in any area of your psyche are to do with being an empath. They're not exclusive, but they do sometimes connect a few dots for people as they look back over the pattern of their anxieties. Another issue that can arise is that you end up attracting more of the same. So people who are in need of offloading their emotions can pick up on someone who is receptive. And that someone may be you when you're feeling a little overwhelmed already by others' energies. So what do we do? The most important thing to do is, before we even sort of consider crystals, is to set boundaries. It can feel a little bit out of our comfort zone to do this when you're an empathetic person who is sensitive to those around you and who you want to make feel better by being there for them. But there's a limit to how much you can do for someone else, particularly when it comes to offloading. It needs to be very much on your terms so that you're A, not doing yourself a disservice and becoming overwhelmed, and B, not doing them a disservice, because someone who isn't really listening or is experiencing discomfort from lending a listening ear may very well send out the wrong message to the person offloading and opening up their heart. So whilst this session in particular isn't looking at that area of dealing with boundary setting, it's important to work on that first, okay? Yes, Carol hates crowds as well. She tries to go to the shops when not busy. Oh gosh, I know. I choose my supermarket wisely as well. I never used to go into Morrison's in Gisborough, to be honest, because it was just such a small shop and everything was so close together. I used to hate it. So would avoid that one in particular.
I always feel quite lucky in Saltburn.
Yeah, we are lucky. Sainsbury's
Quiet.
is quite light and airy, isn't it? And
Yeah.
quite wide. And of course, Saltburn's a smaller town than Gisborough, I think.
Yeah,
I think
easily.
so. So yeah, we tend to be a bit spoilt here, really. But it can be overwhelming in a supermarket, definitely, because there's all sorts of different energies going on there, isn't there? You've got your kids screaming, wanting their sweets, and you've got people rushing to get stuff before work, after work, or worrying about what to cook for dinner, like Johnny does, or
and even more so post-COVID, because different people's anxieties and things like
anxieties,
that
yeah,
adds to the feeling of
about the
almost
whole virus
the energy of
thing.
it all. Yeah.
Yeah, Morrison's is a bit of a nightmare. Yes, it is. It's not funny at all, Carol, to feel depressed when you visit all Morrison's shops. I think there's certainly a vibe around certain brandings as well. But this is the thing, you see, that it's not just when you're in the confined space of one specific shop. Sometimes it is an energy that's a collective energy around certain situations or certain brands or whatever. It all goes towards you picking these things up and just becoming much more sensitive to them. So, yeah, some people do like to tell you their life story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you are an open and giving person and you're a caring person, an empathetic person, you know, that's part of your role. For most people, it's you want to help other people, but you have to set those boundaries so that you don't get overwhelmed with it all. Okay. So the next way that I would suggest is useful for both boundary setting and for helping to reduce the risk of becoming overwhelmed is with crystals, of course, and that's why we're here, to go through some of my favorite ones and most used crystals for this purpose. Because obviously for 15, 16 years, I've worked with energy directly. And when I was at the height of doing therapies, doing a lot of Reiki and crystals, and even when you're doing physical massage, you are still working in someone's auric field. And when they're relaxed, some people like to talk, you know, so you're constantly picking up energies in therapies all the time. So this is how I sort of ended up coming to choose these particular crystals, because they worked for me in that intense setting and because I can't close the door, basically. Crystals can provide an energetic barrier so that you're less likely to be the one someone tunes into. Now, I'm not saying that we want nobody to come to us with their issues. Of course we don't. We do want to help people. We want to be there to listen. But crystals can provide that sort of nice energetic barrier when you're either feeling a little bit vulnerable yourself, or when you know that you're going to be in the company of certain people or in certain situations, so you can prepare yourself. And they also help us to keep our auric field clear of energetic debris, for want of a better word. Okay, so we don't pick up and hold on to energies that are not useful for us. Caroline doesn't like Asda. We're having a supermarket bash tonight. name your less favoured supermarket for energy. Asda's great for a bargain, though. I like Asda for that. So before you even begin choosing a crystal for the purpose of creating either a cleansing or a protective barrier energetically, you need to make sure that you're coming from your place of balance, of equilibrium, i.e., you need to be sure that you're starting from where the energies you're experiencing are your own and nobody else's. So this means going through a cleansing process for yourself, or giving yourself some Reiki, or crystal treatment, a bit of crystal therapy, or having a ritual cleansing bath, anything that floats your boat with the intention of creating a clean slate. Once you've done that, you're ready to start selecting some crystals that will be your ally in whatever situation that you'll need them. Okay, so that you've got them there at the ready for when you nip into Asda. Okay, so for one example, if you know that you get drained at work by colleagues or the atmosphere of the office or customers, dare I say, you could choose a crystal for that intention. If you know that you get drained in the supermarket or when you're going to a party, just because of the sheer volume of differing energies that are around you, you could choose a crystal for that specific purpose. Or if you know that certain people, family, friends, or friends of friends are a drain on your energy, and you see them regularly enough, have a special crystal just for them. You could even put their name on it. It sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But the reality is you're doing this so that you can be in their company with a much stronger mind and willingness to be there, so that you don't avoid them completely, so that you don't hide away like a hermit like I do. So, not that I do that all the time, actually, but you know, I like to joke about it. So you're doing it not just for you. You are doing this for them as well, so that they can benefit from your company, because they would be honoured to have you in their company, I'm sure. Sharon felt so overwhelmed during lockdown, picking up on how everyone was feeling. Crystals helped greatly. Yes, they helped me too. It was quite an intense time, wasn't it, during lockdown, because when we talk about picking up people's energies, we often think about being in their physical presence as well. During lockdown, that was tricky because it was even more intense when you were going to places like a supermarket or wherever. But actually, we do pick up people's energies because we're all one, we're all connected. We do pick up vibrations, through digital media. So we can pick these things up at all times. It's not just about being face to face with somebody. So lockdown was kind of difficult for people who were venturing out into the world, and it was very difficult for people who were sitting at home reading all of the sort of scaremongering and all the rest of it on Facebook or on the news or whatever. And you can feel that buildup of collective energy that has great power. So crystals can help with all of these situations, thankfully. The crystal that you choose for whatever situation it is you're considering, be it supermarket, party, or work, as examples, could be done intuitively, of course. And you know me, if you do know me, having worked with crystals for many years, I will always say the crystal you choose when you think about a specific issue is the one that's right for you. But if that's all I was going to tell you this evening, then this would be where we'd finish. So I am going to... Job done. Yeah, off you go now. But I did promise to share with you some of the crystals that I've found useful over the years. So from an experiential point of view, I can give you an idea of the situation that they might be useful for, and why. And, you know, if you're new to crystals as well, that could be very valuable. And even if you're not, sometimes we just like to trial a different approach that's being tried and tested by others, because, I don't know, maybe we're just not feeling confident enough with choosing a crystal for that particular situation. Okay. All right. So we will get on to my top 5 crystals. Oh my goodness, Nikki didn't leave her house for 6 months. Nikki, I didn't leave my bed for 6 months. but that was a bulging disc. It was a long time. I didn't leave the house much at all through lockdown, but to be honest, it did me a lot of good. So I can't complain about it. I took advantage of it. Yeah, absolutely, Carol. Working from home during lockdown stopped her brooding too much. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Shall we get started? My first top crystal is, I'm going to show you a picture of it, Fluorite. Ta-da! Johnny's not surprised.
I am shocked that this has made the list.
You're surprised that it's made the list? There are definitely some harder hitters that I could start with, but Fluorite is my first go-to. Why? Apart from the fact that it's absolutely beautiful and just has the most delicious energy, because it isn't entirely about closing a door to energy, basically. It's more about filtering that energy away from you. It soaks up what you might term negative energy, or at the very least, unwanted or unserving energy, like a sponge. It really does. But more than that, Fluorite is a crystal that is considered to be a learning crystal. Now, yes, in the context of study and so on, that's obvious. But in this instance, in learning how to identify which emotions are yours and which are not. So it brings clarity to the situation, because it's important to remember that we need to identify whose energies, whose emotions are what, so that we can release the right ones and experience our own. We don't want to shut off our own emotions, but we do want to control how we emote in response to somebody else's energies. Okay, so this is particularly important, I feel, if you're someone who is actively working on heightening your awareness for the purpose of therapies or working with other clients or in the realm of mediumship and so on, because it is important to be able to distinguish the difference between yours and theirs, that yours and mine, yours and theirs, without detaching from it. Okay, we don't want to be detaching because you need it to work, to be able to provide the service that you're offering. Now, if you are simply highly sensitive and have zero desire to be, you just happen to be built that way, there will likely be better choices for you from the other crystals that I'll suggest. But fluorite for me is also a great starting point because it's gentle. It helps to balance your emotions, and it also has lots of other properties that help with physical health as well. So it's a good all-rounder. I always think about fluorite in terms of when I had a head cold once. It's really good. This is the specific piece of fluorite that I use when I have a head cold. For years, it's sat on my bedside. I haven't had a head cold that often, so I don't know why it sits there, but every now and again, when I do get a head cold, I'll use this to press on certain pressure points on the face and on the ears and on the hands. And the reason why is because it drains mucus from the body, which sounds gross, but it does. It speeds up the process of draining mucus. Now, think about that in terms of other people's energy that's not needed. You've experienced it because there's been a brief need to, perhaps. In the terms of a cold, you're fighting something. It's your immune system creating the mucus to be able to, do its thing. But in terms of other people's energy, you've experienced it and you now need to get rid of it. So that's why I like to work with fluorite. And I also have this fabulous ball as well, which usually sits on my altar, but I brought this up well on the downstairs altar. So I think we're getting quite a few now. There's little altars scattered around our house.
All over the place.
Okay, so that is my first crystal. You want to see it again? It's just so beautiful. Fluorite. Yes, I love the variety of colors. Absolutely love it. I mean, this one's obviously got the gorgeous greens and purples, but blue fluorite is just amazing. Yellow fluorite, there's just such variety.
Such a range,
it is, yeah. It's no wonder I have to buy a piece every time I go to the warehouse. Okay, so that's our first one. Now, if you suffer with anxiety or depression as a result of experiencing the overwhelm of others' emotions, my strong recommendation is hematite. Hematite is a crystal that has seen me through some very tricky times of heightened sensitivity. You know, when you're going through emotional turbulence in your own life and you just open yourself up to the drama of everyone else's life as well, this is the crystal to turn to. So the great thing about hematite, and I only have a little ditty piece. This one's come out of my crystal reading kit, actually. The great thing about hematite is that it works directly on the anxiety. It helps to lift the mood, but it also creates a wonderful barrier between you and any unwanted energy. It also, in my experience, acts a little bit like a warning sign. So I like to think of it as those parking sensors on cars, so you get too close and a beep goes off telling you to be careful. And if you get too close, you're going to get a bigger nudge to say, back off. Now's the time to stop and leave. Because I only like it when it beep, beep, beeps. I don't like it when it beep.
You really don't, do you?
I really don't. And that's how I think of hematite. It creates that warning signal for me about energies that are not going to do me any favors. And so it's like, whoa, back off from that one a little bit. So carrying it with you can help give you that signal. Now, what I love about hematite, though, is as much as it creates that sort of protective shield of energy, it actually works more deeply on raising your strength, nurturing your sense of self and your inner power, so that you can feel more able to face and deal with the situations of unwanted energy rather than getting bogged down by them, or in some cases running away, which again, I've done in the past. I possibly still do it from time to time. You can amplify the energy of hematite even further by combining it with my next suggestion, which is probably the crystal that people thought would be at the top of the list. Black tourmaline. Okay. I actually only use this when things are particularly uncomfortable. If you know that you're going into a situation where the energy is going to be confrontational or argumentative and most definitely negatively charged in some way, you know, proper whinging Winnie brigade, maybe a family gathering or something like that, this is when I would use black tourmaline. And you can combine it with the hematite as well to give an extra ampage to it. It's an extremely powerful tool in supporting empaths. It really, really is. It sort of acts as a shield and also a kind of storage facility, if you like, for negative energy, because it absorbs it instead of you absorbing it. And whereas the hematite gives you the warning signs to stay away from the energy that might bring you down or drain you, tourmaline actually has the power to repel it from you. So you may find that people are less likely to approach you. They won't know why necessarily. They won't say, oh my God, she must be wearing tourmaline. But they will sense that energy because, like I say, everybody feels energy. Some of us are just that little bit more sensitive to it. But that doesn't mean that people won't react. And as I said before we started talking crystals, when you're preparing yourself to choose a crystal that will suit whatever situation it is that you need, you can actually use black tourmaline, this is my smooth piece, as a way of doing this. So get a piece, just one piece, you only need a small piece of black tourmaline, and pop it under your pillow overnight. And when your energy is at its most susceptible, vulnerable, you might say, the tourmaline will clear away any unwanted energy that has sort of been attaching itself to your subtle body that you've not been able to let go of whilst you sleep. And it leaves you with a nice clean slate of energy in the morning. And then you can go about choosing most effectively which crystal will support you for the day ahead. If you've got a party, you might choose a different one. Depends who's at the party. You might stick with the same one. The most wonderful thing about black tourmaline when working with it on its own is that it's a piezoelectric crystal, which means it creates both a positive and negative polarity when you activate it by friction. So turning it over in your hand and just, you know, it's very tactile if you get a nice smooth piece, because obviously you don't want to use a rough piece and do that. You might end up with splinters. If you find yourself in a situation that's becoming overwhelming, you simply get hold of your polished tourmaline and give it a bit of a rub. And that heat creates the balancing polarities that will help you to feel balanced energetically. And it will be doing its own thing with creating that protective barrier and repelling energies. But the most important thing for you to do in that moment is to focus on you and how you're feeling. And the act of turning over a piece of tourmaline in your hand can be a very powerful self-help tool. Okay, so that is tourmaline. That is my third go-to crystal. Are we liking these crystals? Everybody's loving fluorite. I can see that.
I like these crystals.
Okay, my next one, another one that I absolutely love, and I know a few of you love it as well, is Lapidolite. Oh, yes. This is a much more nurturing crystal than tourmaline. So if you find that you become more emotional as a result of experiencing the emotions of others, lapidolite should be your go-to. It's another crystal, much like fluorite, that doesn't create a barrier as such. This is more, I'm just picking up one of my favorite pieces of lapid at the moment. I do have some smaller pieces as well, but
what's the other name?
this is a nice one.
Given
Yeah, it's also known by purple mica. Yeah, so you might know it as that. It's very pretty, very pretty. So yeah, if you tend to pick up on the emotions of those that you're channeling healing to, for example, but the last thing that you want to do is create any blocks to that healing, lapidolite will actually help you to identify which emotions are yours. I was talking about that earlier. It's really important to know whose is whose. Which of those of the person that you're Reikiing, if you're doing Reiki, and then it will rebalance so that they remain with their host. Okay, so it's more about helping you to manage energies rather than blocking them. Yeah. So lapidolite also contains lithium. It's lithium rich, a mood enhancer. You'll probably know that it's in things like antidepressants and whatnot. It increases those really feel good vibes within you, which helps to really balance the emotions. But more than that, one of its aims is to help teachers to self-soothe. So we're learning from the use of this gentle but powerful crystal how to deal with energy sensitivity going forward, particularly emotional responses to it. It's not just a quick fix in the moment to get through the situation. Using lapidolite is more about how you can improve things in the future. So by using it, you are soothing yourself and rebalancing those emotions based on whose is whose. But it is also, whilst doing that, working with you to help you learn how to deal with them more effectively in the future so that you don't have to pick up a crystal necessarily. You may become more aware of emotions and the separation between somebody else's and yours. Oh, okay, I need a bit of water. I don't drink booze, but I do like a pint glass, a tankard. Okay, my final crystal choice for this evening's session is Kyanite. Oh my goodness. I've had a love-hate relationship with Kyanite over the years. It definitely began as a loathing to even touch it, but it's developed into one of my most favorite crystals for helping to deal with energy and negative energy, full stop. Kyanite doesn't hold any negativity at all. It just slides right off. And I tend to use something this size. It's teeny tiny. You really don't need a lot. I mean, I've got about 5 or 6 pieces in the crystal kit for therapies, I think, something like that. But tiny, tiny pieces. They're not massive. It's not always about size, okay? But Kyanite doesn't hold any negativity. It slides off, which makes it the perfect companion in situations where your empathetic nature is being challenged. Sharon loves Kyanite. Oh, I love it. But I tell you what, years ago, this exact sort of size piece where they're quite thin, I would get them in bags, obviously, to fill the little container in the shop. I couldn't touch it because all I wanted to do was just break it. I just wanted to break it. And there's lots of healing from my past that has been done that's made me understand why, which I won't go into. But my relationship with Kyanite has changed a whole lot, and as you can see, I can hold it without breaking it now, and I absolutely love it. It's just so calming as well. Often the first crystal that I place when doing a crystal therapy on someone, because it just works so instantly in calming down the conscious mind, which can be our biggest saboteur. So just popping it here on the old third eye. Our mind is the cheeky chap that turns those molehills into mountains. If we can nip that in the bud, then often our experience of energy is way more manageable. Now, you can either use blue kyanite, or there is black kyanite as well. There's actually golden kyanite, though I tend not to work with that a huge amount. I do have some black, but I much prefer blue. That's my favorite. But they do work equally effectively for this particular purpose. And one of the things that I love so much about kyanite is that it really does switch the mind off to the point where we can become much more meditative, internal, noticing our triggers, and therefore gaining insight into just what it is that's affecting our moods. And in this way, it helps us to know what is ours and what is not, as I said earlier. This is really important because we don't want to switch off emotions or responses completely. And we learn how to manage energy more if we can identify its source and the effect that it's having on us. Now, kyanite can also be used as a bit of a recovery tool as well. So if you have had a day, even if you've prepared yourself with another crystal and it's still turned out to be one of those days where everything's just come at you and you feel severe overwhelm, as I say, get a little piece. It only has to be a little piece. Pop it on your third eye, and that'll help to bring your mind under control and stop the mind monkeys from building those mountains up. So add a little bit of kyanite into your crystal collection because it's definitely well worth it. Now, there are a ton of other crystals which have benefits for empaths: rose quartz, lapis lazuli, amethyst, golden healer, many more. Honestly, there's loads. But these 5 are my absolute favorites. They are my go-tos. If you experience strongly the energy and emotions of others, they are tried and tested, certainly by myself and many other therapists that I know over many years of personal work for me, but also with hundreds of clients as well. So you can only go by results, really. And I've certainly seen the positive results of all of these. Yeah, blue lace agate is another one, Carol. That's a really great one. Really good. The thing with all agates as well, I mean, different agates will appeal to different people, but the thing with agates is they're naturally very grounding and very strengthening, but they're one of those crystals that the more you work with it, the stronger you get from it and the stronger the bond you have with that crystal. So it works even more effectively the longer you work with it. It's almost like it becomes part of you. So yeah, I would definitely say agate would be in my top 10 for sure. And I would always go for blue lace agate over many other agates. Although I do have a bit of a fondness for Botswana agate. That's particularly nice. I'm sure that these crystals will work their magic for you. All of those that I've mentioned are multifaceted crystals, and so will work with you in many different ways, grounding you in your conscious expression whilst keeping you energetically aware when necessary, and providing protection when it's needed as well. Carry them with you, pop them in your bra, wear them as jewelry, use them as I've mentioned, just like the black tourmaline, you know, popping it under your pillow at night to cleanse the whole body, the whole energy field, with, you know, or carrying it with you and rubbing it when you're just feeling particularly stressed or overwhelmed. And the kyanite, by placing that on your third eye at the end of a difficult day. Put them on your desk at work, on your altar, anywhere that you feel that there's an abundance of energy that you find difficult, uncomfortable, and you just can't manage it. Crystals will work their magic. They always do. So there we have it, folks. That is my offering this evening. If you do have any questions, I am here now for you if you would like. If you found the session useful and you would like to offer a small donation to help us keep the workshops free, then Johnny will pop a link in the comments. They are always gratefully received, just so that we can maintain equipment and stuff. You can also get hold of more free woo from us in our portal at www.woogooguru.co.uk/free-woo. I've just uploaded a new healing grid in there today. And our Woo membership reopens on the 1st of March. If you'd like to join us for our next monthly theme and weekly crystal readings and more workshops, we're doing a cord cutting one at the end of this month. I can't wait for that. Woo parties, exclusive Facebook group where you can get hold of me pretty much on demand. So you can reserve yourself a space for that. If you're interested, just drop us a line. We're always here for you. Thanks, Johnny, for helping out with those comments and monitoring everybody, make sure that they were all tended to.
Not letting the 2 rooms.
Amanda has a lady wanting to join. Well, that lady is most welcome to join if she would like. Just show her the way, Amanda. You do a wonderful job. Okay, thank you ever so much. I'm not seeing any specific questions, and you can always pop them into the comments later or drop a line over to the page if you think of anything. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Carol. I'm going to say good night to you now. Ta-ta for now.
Cheerio.